up, ladies and gentlemen? It's Skill Up here with another Should I Buy It? A weekly look at what's available at the vendors this week. Should you buy it? And if you do buy it, how do you mod it? I do these videos every week at this time, so if you like this sort of content, be sure to subscribe. And with that, let's get stuck straight into it. The first thing I wanted to discuss this week was how vendors have changed in patch 1.3. So for those of you on Xbox and PC, you will have noticed that the vendors have moved around a bit, and I just wanted to provide a quick breakdown on who's selling what and where they are so that you know going forward. So first up, we have our old favorite next to the recalibration station upstairs in the base of operations. So this guy has seen some changes with regards to what he sells. So before, he was our go-to for the latest and greatest high-end gear. We could get 204 weapons from him, which were the highest gear score at the time. That's no longer the case. So this guy now sells gear score 204 weapons when the highest gear score is 229. So it's actually not worth visiting this guy anymore unless you are trying to gear up. He will also sell, some set items, some other bits and pieces, etc., but all of them are really low gear score level. So this guy is not a vendor that we need to be visiting regularly, and I will not be covering him anymore on these Should I Buy It videos. Of course, as I said, if you're trying to gear up, he's a really good stop because he's got some good cheap stuff, but for most of us, we're keen on the 229. Heading down the longest stairs in the world, oh my god, massive please, the vendor we see down when we first arrive in the terminal area is also another vendor that sells 204 gear score items. He sells the Historian as well, so both of those vendors that we've just seen both sell the Historian. However, he also sells new stuff, other stuff, as in they don't have the same inventory, but it is still only 204. And yeah, for that reason, again, it's not particularly compelling. He sells set items, he sells other high-end gear pieces, but none of it is worthy of our attention because it's all 204 or less. So again, I will not be covering this guy either. Heading to the right of that vendor, we get to this weird sort of booth with plenty of bullet holes in it, and we see another special special vendor. This one sells blueprints. So all of our blueprints that we had on the upstairs vendor in the base of operations have been taken away from him, and they've now been put onto this guy. But of course, they are only 214 gear score items, so not particularly useful to us unless we're trying to round out a set bonus and we really desperately need a piece. We can visit this guy, but generally we're going to be wanting the higher level gear score items. He does sell weapon kits for fabric, electronics, tools, and weapon parts, which is really useful. And all of the old blueprints that were on the upstairs vendor, such as, a firearms vest at 182 and firearms gear mod, all those sorts of things are still available with him, so you can buy those with him if you like. Heading underground into the staging areas for operations, this is where we find the best vendor. He's the one that sells all of the high-end stuff, but obviously the challenge there is that there is a requirement that you have underground ranks in order to be able to purchase this stuff. So the 229 weapon that he only sells one, requires rank 40. He'll sell a 204 weapon for rank 20, and then he's got some other much cheaper stuff that cascades down. Very interestingly, he also sells blueprints, Firecrest and Blind knee pads for, that are rank 40, and they're level 268. And he also sells some other blueprints at 240 and 240 and 214, etc. So there's some good stuff to be got from there if you're interested in those two gear sets and you need to round out some high level pieces. But yeah, you do have to have that rank 40 underground in order to be able to do it. So that's the breakdown of the new vendors, and that's how I'll be looking at them each week. I won't be looking at any of the upstairs vendors. I'll only be looking at this one, and I'll be assuming that you have that rank 40 or you're chasing it. And then also we're going to talk about the Darkzone vendor because that still sells 229 weapons, and we're going to come to that in a little bit. For those of you that did manage to grind rank 40 in the underground, good on you. That would have taken a bloody long time. The talents that appear on this Paratrooper SVD are okay. We have prepared. Damage is increased by 14% when more than 40 meters from the target. Just note though that the SVD actually has an optimal range of 34 meters. So in order to get use out of this, you actually need to put an optimal range mod on your gun. So it's kind of a nice talent to have have in theory, but it's not that great in practice since you really want to be putting other things on your scope, like which is where you get optimal range. You'd be wanting to put, say, crit chance or headshot damage or accuracy. So from that perspective, not the best talent that you could go for this one. Competent. Weapon damage is increased by 14% after using a skill. Nice talent to have if you are running a skill power focus build, and if you are able to sort of use an ability every sort of 10 to 15 seconds, it can work really well, but it does require a specific build and playstyle to be able to do that. And then of course we have Decisive, which is the baked in talent on every SVD. Killing a target will make your next shot within the weapon with the weapon an automatic critical hit. I personally don't like this talent. I try and roll it away on SVDs whenever I can, unless I have if I've got two other really strong talents, I'll always roll away the Decisive, because having one extra crit after you kill a target is not particularly great, given that I don't always land the killing blow on a target, and one critical hit on this weapon isn't particularly good because I don't build for crit on this thing, I build for headshot damage, so it's not a particularly strong talent on an SVD. For those of you that hit rank 20 and you may be chasing the 204, let's be real, you're not going to do that. If you hit rank 20, you've already got so much loot out of those caches that you're not going to be interested in a 204 weapon. There also, as I said, is the Firecrest knee pads and the blind. I'm going to do some proper talking about these two gear sets soon. Long story short, don't use the blind gear set at all. It's not good on any level, any way, shape or form. Steer clear of it. The Firecrest gear set is kind of fun and interesting, and you kind of just get to be this like fire mage, just throwing fire everywhere. But is it a truly competitive gear set that you're going to want to build and use in like challenging endgame content? Not really. It's not really built for that at this point. It does need some further tweaks before it becomes truly competitive. Other than that, you can see that there's a whole bunch of other stuff available in that vendor. You can check that out at your leisure, but let's head over to DZ3. At the DZ3, things are not as exciting as they used to be. There used to be a lot of 204 weapons for us to choose from, and now there's only really one. It's as in 229 weapons, something that we really want. This week it's a classic FAL, and to be clear, the classic FAL is actually a burst fire assault rifle, which is not great. The delay in between each burst of the FAL really brings its total DPS down, even though its per bullet damage is quite high. In terms of the talents that you've got on this thing, you've got Adept. Using a skill increases your critical hit chance by 9% for 5 seconds. 5 seconds is a very short amount of time, making this not a great talent. Provident, the last bullet in your magazine deals 58% more damage. Terrible talent for any automatic weapon. You really want to be using that on something with a very small magazine like a shotgun or an M44. And finally, Determined. Killing a target reduces skill cooldowns by 9.5%, which can be okay in certain builds, but yeah, I mean, it's not really, you're not going to get a huge amount of benefit out of that. So yeah, overall, not a great weapon. Definitely worth passing up on this one. In terms of the blueprints, we'd really hoped that we'd see some 229 blueprints coming through out of DZ3, but that's not the case. We still have these 204 blueprints, meaning that under the current meta, there's actually nothing for us to craft. There's nothing, unless things change in the blueprints in future, there will actually be nothing of value for us to craft unless some of the high-end gear blueprints rotate at that vendor back in the base of operations, and that is improved. So it's a bit of a step back from a crafting perspective. It would be nice to be able to craft some high-end gear, some high-end weapons that we really want to use, but that's not really the case. So yeah, that's that. At the DZ5 vendor, we actually see some very useful stuff. We see that there's a CQBSS scope FDE, which is headshot damage and critical hit chance. Both of these are really excellent. This only requires rank 40, and it's 31,000 Darkzone funds, so it's quite reasonable. I'd really recommend it. It actually does fit on your G36, which everyone is using right now, so it's a really good one if you haven't got that already. It also has a high velocity magazine, crit hit chance, and magazine size. Since SMGs no longer have crit chance baked into them, they get critical hit damage instead, and since this one is a magazine that fits into, well, all magazines fit in all guns, it can actually be used on your brand new PP19. I'd really recommend popping in a crit hit chance mod into a PP19 if you don't have one already, because they can really help boost your DPS quite a bit. And on the blueprint side, we see that they've got the same scope as we saw above. but on a blueprint form, which rolls at headshot damage bonus as a minimum, so you're always going to get that, plus something else. So that's a really good one to have because it's a very flexible, large style mod that you can use in a lot of guns. And we also have a muzzle brake blueprint. This is an any type mod that can be used on pretty much any weapon, and it has stability as its base, which is really, really useful for a lot of weapons like shotguns or assault rifles, even marksman rifles. If you don't have stable on your marksman rifle, putting stability on it's really important. Having stability on your muzzle can really help. So I'd really recommend picking up that one if you don't have it already and you've got the funds spare. There's also a rugged mini reflex sight blueprint, which is really good because it's a mini one, and the mini ones are quite hard to come by, and it comes with accuracy baked in. And then we've got a one that has hip fire accuracy as its base. Don't worry about that. Don't get that. Hip fire accuracy is really not what we should be modding for. And just in case you were wondering, at DZ6 we have the same sort of stuff that we saw before, which is lower level gear score items, 191 in fact, so quite useless to us. And we also have a number of other blueprints coming in at 214. Again, useful for completing gear sets, but not useful for much else. So you're probably going to want to steer clear of the DZ6 vendor. It's not going to give you a lot of value. So overall, things have really been shaken up with regards to the vendors and what we can expect from them. So first of all, there's really only sort of 2 vendors that sell useful stuff, and they sell less useful stuff than they used to. And also, we've also learned that blueprints aren't really a thing. Maybe this is a bug, who knows? But right now, there's actually no weapons that are worth crafting. The highest level craftable weapon is a 204, and we want to be crafting 229. So things have really changed on that front. We'll have to wait to hear from Massive on whether or not this is their intent, or whether or not it was another bug that has popped up in this patch. It certainly wouldn't be the first time for that sort of thing. So we will just wait and see. But otherwise, that's it from me, guys. As I said, I do these every week. So if you like this video and you found it useful, do drop it a like. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe. It'd be great to have you around. I will see you guys very soon. There's going to be plenty of videos from me this week breaking down all the new stuff that's coming out of patch 1.3. So yeah, take good care, you guys. Thanks for watching. Appreciate your time. And I'll see you in the Darkzone. Bye-bye.